Thank you for joining us. For the Miami Valley Salute to Veterans, I'm Cindy LaPointe-Dafler, a volunteer host for the Miami Valley Communications Council. My husband was killed in Vietnam in 1969. He was posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor. Being around our veterans and talking with them, hearing their stories and their thoughts, is my way of honoring my husband's legacy. We hope that hearing these memories from veterans of our community will help us all better understand the dedication of those who have served. Today we're talking with Samuel Deeds of Independence, Kentucky, a Marine who served from 1997 until 2011. He will tell his story of his time in the military. Thank you for being with us here today, Sam.
Oh, thank you for having me.
So, when you went in the military, why did you choose the Marines?
You know, that's usually the first question a lot of people ask me.
And that's my first question.
And there's really no simple answer. I grew up in Howland, Maine, a very small town north of Bangor, central Maine. I think our graduating class might have been 83 people from 9 different towns. So a lot of people in the area, big into logging or working at the paper mill. And as a junior, sophomore, and a freshman, my grandfather worked in the woods. My stepdad worked in the woods most of my childhood, and then started working for a company that, as a commercial electrician. And I'd watch the recruiters come to the school, and I was like, you know, that's something I want to do. But I really started watching the recruiters and how they presented themselves, who they interacted with. Were they talking to the underclassmen, or were they just kind of, oh, you're a freshman, I can't talk to you? Were they really giving them the information they needed? So after all of that, I decided the Marine Corps, and who doesn't like a set of dress blues, right? So so the Marine Corps was my pick. And then I later found that my father was a Marine. I did not know this. My dad passed away from leukemia when I was 8. Oh, so I really didn't get a chance to talk to him about what he did other than working at the paper mill. So yeah, it was pretty neat. And both of my father's path and my path kind of took the same direction, or ended in the same direction. It's kind of weird how that happened at the end, towards the end of my career.
Oh my gosh. How?
So I started with 1st Recruit Training Battalion at Parris Island, South Carolina, and I ended up getting recycled back a week because of the rifle range. And there's a long story there. I'm not going to put the blame on anybody else, but it was something that wasn't to my doing that one of our instructors did that forced me to go back a week. And I ended up graduating with 2nd Recruit Training Battalion. My dad was with 2nd Recruit Training Battalion.
Oh my gosh.
If I would have been recycled a week sooner, there's the possibility I would have been the exact same platoon number that he was in.
Oh, wow.
So then after boot camp, I joined the infantry and went through all the infantry training and spent 9 years in the infantry. And then I ended up, was forced to make a lateral move to a different job, and ended up with the V-22, the Osprey. And at the time was the most technical aircraft that the Marine Corps had. My father was an avionics technician with, at the time, one of the most technical aircraft that the Marine Corps had. So it's kind of weird how everything played out.
The path was following.
For sure.
Oh, wow. And you went to Parris Island for basic training. How was that?
Whew. Yeah, coming from small town Howland, Maine, I think my platoon alone had just as many members as my graduating high school class did. But the heat, the humidity, I was there June, July, August, graduated September. So it was definitely a culture shock for sure. It was a shock on the body just from the temperature change and the humidity change. But I'd say that took probably 3 weeks to a month for my body to truly adjust, because, you know, you're in it every single day. You get acclimatized, and you do kind of get used to it. You don't fully get used to it, but you do kind of get used to it. So it wasn't too awful bad. And, you know, most of our physical training happened in the morning hours when it wasn't too bad. But yeah, marching around and doing movements to and from, you know, training areas and classes during the day in full fatigues, it definitely gets to you. You definitely get a little sweaty.
Oh my gosh. So what did you think about the training? Had you had that kind of physical challenges before?
Yes and no. So I played basketball all through high school. Of course, you're running your drills, but it's all short time, right? You're not going for distance. And then my senior year, a friend of mine talked me into playing soccer. So I ended up playing soccer. So I got used to running the distances, and that helped me prepare. Our coach forced us to run 3 miles, 4 miles at least once a week, sometimes longer. But that helped me prepare for recruit training. And after soccer season was over, I continued to do those runs to prepare myself for boot camp. And then as a poolee is what they're called, and then the late entry program for the Marine Corps, you meet once a month with your recruiters and the other guys and girls that may be shipping out with you around that same time frame, and they help prepare you to leave and get mentally and physically prepared for recruit training as well. So it wasn't, the physical aspect didn't bother me as much as the mental aspect of it, and you know, having somebody this far from you, not every day, but if you mess up, you know, they want to make you understand that you messed up and where you messed up from, and they have their own unique way of doing it as the drill instructors. So, but yeah, it wasn't, physical aspect of recruit training wasn't too awful bad. The crucible of staying up late hours really takes a toll on your body. It takes a toll mentally on you because you're doing not only the physical piece of it, but you know, they want to keep you mentally sharp to try to solve certain puzzles, if you will, or certain aspects you have. You know, your 4 guys have to get from point A to point B with this barrel, and you have to get across this 2-rope bridge, and you can't touch the bottom, right? And they're like, oh, there's a ravine below you or whatever, even though you're this far off the ground, right?
Yeah.
But you know, and you're sleep deprived for that 3-day evolution. So, but yeah, and then of course the rifle range, the gas chamber, the rappel tower, you know, a lot of things that they don't even do in high school anymore. You don't do the rope climb in high school anymore, right?
Really?
Even back in '97, we didn't do it. So learning those things was a little bit of a challenge for some people. I did struggle at first because my upper body strength wasn't where they wanted it to be. It's where I thought it should be, but it's not where they wanted it to be. But that does come. They work with everybody slowly to get you to that point of becoming a basically trained Marine.
Wow. So after basic training, you went to AIT, the advanced training?
So for the Marine Corps, if you are in the infantry, so your job starts with 03, right? That's the designated for the Marine Corps Infantry.
Okay.
You go directly to the School of Infantry, whether it's Camp Geiger on the East Coast or back to Camp Pendleton on the West Coast. But every infantry Marine goes to the School of Infantry Training Battalion.
Okay.
If you are anything other than infantry, you go to the School of Infantry, but you go to Marine Combat Training. It's basic infantry training, and it's a condensed. I think right now it's 21, 22 training days, and then that's just getting you the basic skills of firing a machine gun, the M203 grenade launcher, and I don't even know if they go into like firing the mortar systems or the heavy machine guns, but they just get the basic infantry, the land navigation, and then they go to their formal school. So they get their 22 days of infantry training, then they go learn if it's going to be crash fire rescue, avionics, mechanics, cook, administration, legal. But for infantry guys, we go to the School of Infantry, and we're there, I think it's 9 weeks of infantry training. And then from there, we go directly to our unit.
And then what happens?
Then you train for deployments. I joined in '97. There was nothing going on at that time. I think we did 2 winter packages in Bridgeport, California. We did 1 desert package in 29 Palms, California. But then we did, it's called the UDP, Unit Deployment Program. I deployed to Okinawa, Japan. We spent 2 months in Japan. Well, I say that. I spent 2 months in Japan, then I went to 2 months to Korea, and then I came back to Japan. And the rest of the unit spent 3 months in Okinawa, then spent a month in Korea. Then we came back and spent our last time in Japan. Deployed in 99 to Port-au-Prince, Haiti, on a humanitarian mission to help support the Air Force and the Army's medical, dental, their engineers to help build schools and, well, do the security as they built the schools and built other hospitals in outlying areas so they all didn't have to come into Port-au-Prince. And then in 2000, we took part in a NATO exercise in Thessaloniki, Greece. And then after that, I ended up on recruiting duty somehow, some way. But, you know, you, as an infantry Marine, you're training your entire career to fight whatever battle. They teach you military operations on urban terrain, so city fighting. They teach you jungle warfare. They teach you how to fight in the desert. Anything that has happened prior to 97, you train for. And I'm sure the guys and girls that are going through everything right now are training from what they learned in Afghanistan, what was learned in Iraq, and then all the way back, Korea, Vietnam, all that. And, you know, we do the cold weather training because of the Korean Marines. We do the jungle training because of the Vietnam Marines. For me, my jungle training took place in the northern training area of Okinawa, Japan. So we did a short, abbreviated SEER school, so survival, escape, resist, and evade. If you do get captured, we actually had a Vietnam veteran who was a POW that taught us that. They taught us the TAP code. They taught us how to navigate in the jungle, we did a lot of rappelling. And then the same thing when we went to Korea, we worked with the Republic of Korea Marines, and we worked in the mountains. So climbing the mountains, rappelling down the mountains, doing the big zip line from point to point across valleys. So, I mean, that integrated training, I think, is essential for all of us, right? Because we're learning from the people that are in those areas and from those areas that navigate those areas every day. So it's all you do is train, deploy. And I say deploy, but it's not a combat deployment. You know, there's still that chance that something could happen. We did lose, when I was at the School of Infantry early, it might have been early into my first unit, we had somebody that was killed on a range. But, you know, it's not like it was when it was in combat. And then from 01 to 04, I was a recruiter out of Louisville, Kentucky. For 10 months, I was a recruiter in Fairfield, Ohio. So I had Hamilton High School all the way out to Talawanda High School, and then like Princeton, Winton Woods, New Miami, Baden. I think those are the schools I had. And then I moved over to Northern Kentucky and finished my recruiting career there. And I had 8 schools. I had five schools in Indiana, Southeast Indiana, and then I had some schools in Boone County and Kenton County.
Your first assignment after training was going to Japan, and then... Yeah,
my first assignment was 2nd Battalion, 8th Marines.
Okay.
I stayed there from 97 until, I think, October of 2000, end of September of 2000.
Okay.
Infantry unit, and we deployed, like I said, to Japan, Korea, and Greece, and then did other training stateside. And then after that, from late 2000 until January 2001, I was with 2nd Light Armored Reconnaissance Battalion. We basically, as an infantry Marine in that unit, you're used as a scout. So a forward observer, you're looking at bridges to make sure the vehicle can cross the bridge. You're looking at if the vehicle can go through the water, what type of bottom it is, how fast is the current, is the vehicle going to be taken, do they have to approach it a different way? And then obviously you're out there just looking at enemy positions to let your unit know what to expect when they go into that area.
So when did your training take a turn and you went to the aviation side?
After I got injured in Iraq. So I like I said, 01 to 04, I was here on recruiting duty. And then in 2004, I went back to the infantry. I went back to Camp Lejeune, and I might have been with the unit maybe 3 or 4 days. And they're like, oh, you've been to Haiti before. You're going back. And by the way, you're taking these 10 guys with you. So I deployed I picked up 10 students, 12 students from the School of Infantry on a Friday. And I think we deployed on Wednesday that following week to Haiti. I spent I think we came home just before the 4th of July. So March, April of 04 to end of June, beginning of July. And then came home, and we were supposed to deploy that following year, August, I think, to Iraq. And we started training for Iraq. So doing all the military operations on urban terrain, so training for cities. Went out to 29 Palms, California again to train. And then when we came back from that, they're like, oh, by the way, you're deploying early. We leave next month. So we ended up deploying January 05 to Iraq. And then I got injured I was involved in an IED blast in February of 05, and then another one 30 days later in March. And that one sent me back to the States.
Oh my God.
My injuries were so severe that I couldn't stay in country any longer. So from Iraq to Landstuhl, Germany to Andrews for the night, got evaluated there by the doctors from Bethesda, because it wasn't joint Walter Reed Bethesda yet. And then the doctor's like, oh yeah, you can keep your leg. No problem. We're going to send you back to your home hospital. And I was like, wait a minute. We never had this discussion. What do you mean I can keep my leg? But then I went back to Camp Lejeune and did another week in the hospital there, and then was discharged to my wife for care. I had at-home care for a while. And then my unit was still deployed into Iraq. And then they came home. And then our battalion executive officer, he was a major at the time, shifted units, and he pulled me over to his unit with him to help give me basically a desk job as I recovered to get healthy. And then that was probably late 05, early 06. And my contract was coming up, and the coming out of the Marine Corps said, if you're an injured veteran or injured Marine, you want to stay, we have programs. If you can stay in your current job skill, you can stay. But if you're not physically capable of doing that, you have to find another job. So it was at that point that I started looking at different jobs. So that was probably early 06. And then my options were administrative. I was like, no, after recruiting duty, I'm not doing anything paperwork wise. Counter intel, which was very appealing to me. I thought there was going to be a good fit for me. But when I went and did my interview, the guy's like, when did you get promoted? I'm like, last month, like 30 days ago. And he says, you'll be a gunny by the time you're out of school. I was like, man, I don't know if I can do that. And he got offended. He's like, you don't want to be a gunny? I was like, listen, there's nothing more in this world that I want to do than being a gunnery sergeant of Marines. But I can't go into whatever country we may be at the time, only knowing what I learned in school as the leader of the group. Even though coming from the infantry, that leadership quality was already there, but not having the technical aspect of the job really weighed on me. So I looked at a job that would be I could be competitive in, that other people were going into, and the newest job out there was going to work with the V-22. So June 6th of 06, I moved over to the V-22. And then spent 5 years there, and after 30 plus surgeries, ended up getting medically retired. So coming home and learning to start all over again. Mm-hmm. And I tell people all the time, I say, the Marine Corps, especially as an infantry Marine, they train you for war, they train you for war, they train you for war, they train you for war. They don't train you to come home. And then traumatic brain injury wasn't a thing until 2007. course, post-traumatic stress has been around forever. It's had numerous different names.
Right.
And the doctors truly still don't have proper treatments for it. You know, they want to treat everybody the same, and it's the brain. You have to treat everybody different. You have to give everybody an individual treatment plan that works for them. And for me, it's fishing, just getting out of my headspace, you know, go out and fishing. When I'm fishing, I'm concentrating on catching a fish. All those other things just go away for that time being. Mm-hmm. And then I've been fortunate enough to be involved with a few nonprofits, and one of them's right here in Middletown, and they cater to wounded veterans, Gold Star families, families of fallen first responders. And I've met some amazing people through them, a lot of Gold Star families, and, you know, being able to help them because, you know, you as the individual might have served with their son or daughter or their husband, mm-hmm. or there's something about you that reminds them of their son, their daughter, their husband, their loved one that they lost. And it's very healing for them, and it's healing for the veteran, especially for, you know, guys like me. We lost 25 guys in 05 and 06, or 05 and 06 in Iraq. And, you know, I knew every one of those guys by name. I didn't know each one of them personally, but a few of them I did. And I was pretty close to, or they were mentors, they were friends, or they were both. So, you know, living with that fact that, you know, they had loved ones back at home, and here I am, mm-hmm. upright. You know, what do I do to keep their name alive and to live right by them?
Yes. If you're just joining us, this is Miami Valley Communications Council Salute to Veterans podcast. I'm your host, Cindy LaPointe-Dafler, and today we're talking with Marine veteran Samuel Deeds. So, you qualified for the aircraft.
I did.
Specialized.
I did.
Were you deployed doing that?
I did not. I ended up, just because of the amount of surgeries I was going through and the recovery time and everything else, they kept me in a training command, a training squadron. So basically, at the time, all the CH-46s were transitioning to be a V-22 squadron. So every guy and girl pilot that wanted to stay within the avionics community, that wanted to stay with that platform or that same unit they were with, would come over and they would learn the new aircraft, fly the new aircraft, and then they would go back and when their unit stood up and be a major part of that unit. So I stayed at the schoolhouse for, I guess, 5 years, a little over 5 years. But there was times that I think before I retired, I ended up with just over 30 surgeries / procedures from 05 to 2011. So that 6-year time period. And a lot of it was, you know, a lot of internal stuff we didn't realize that was going on at the time. February 19th of 2005, I was media away from a roadside bomb that went off, and I was on foot. The Army Corps of Engineers came in early that day and put about 4 or 6 inches of pavement over this dirt road, and that pavement absorbed most of the blast. I did have a Marine that was standing right beside me that he basically flew through the air and then into a fence, got injured. He ended up having to go home. He's still alive today. He's still well. But, you know, I'm the one that made the choice to go down that road. And that weighed on me for a very, very long time. I've tried reaching out to him numerous times. I had this whole thing written out, and I'd delete it, or I wouldn't send it. And then finally last year, I just wrote it out, sent it to him, apologized, because I don't know. I mean, obviously that decision I made affected his life. It affected his Marine Corps career. I didn't know if he was going to stay 4 years or try to go 30. I didn't know what his plans were.
Sure.
So I reached out to him, and, you know, he's not responded back, but, you know, that's that's on him to do. I've, unfortunately made my peace with it and made my apologies. And then a month later, on March 20th, we went out to set up a vehicle checkpoint, and we came through that area earlier that day. And when I went back out, I noticed there was a rock pile on each side of the road that wasn't there earlier when we came in. So I stopped my guys. I went up and looked at it, and then something still didn't feel right. So I sent everybody down around it, and we set up on the other side. I even moved our vehicle. We had a vehicle mounted machine gun out there with us, and I moved that vehicle forward even more than I wanted it. And I heard a noise coming from behind me, and I go back and look, and it's two of my Marines entering the danger area or suspected danger area. So I go back to warn them. I wait for them to clear the area. I turn, and as soon as I turn, the device was detonated. It ended up being a large mortar shell on each side of the road that detonated simultaneously. I flew from, 8 to 10 feet from behind the Humvee to 8 to 10 feet in front of the Humvee. Don't remember much after that. I can tell you what I've read in eyewitness statements and other reports. Yeah. But for me to actually remember that, there's no recollection there whatsoever. I wish my brain would let me process what had happened, but I ended up with a 1/3 open tibia fracture, multiple shrapnel wounds to my lower left thigh, my upper left thigh, my right groin, 2 broken metacarpals in my left hand, shrapnel in my left forearm, and shrapnel in my right hand, and I got a piece in my head that nobody can explain how it got in there. But what had happened was those 2 blasts so close together, and that second one being so violent, the pressure that it put on my body kind of gelled my organs together. And I ended up having just simple laparoscopic gallbladder surgery that turned into getting transported from the Naval Hospital at Camp Lejeune to University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and being flayed open and having everything separated and having a portion of my intestines pulled out. Then my intestines tied back into my stomach, and that portion they pulled out tied into my bile ducts just for my body to operate properly. And over the course of that, because the only flow through that resected portion is bile, and there's not enough bile to keep bacteria from grabbing scar tissue. The scar tissue or the bacteria would build up, break off, and they'd have to go in and do an upper endoscopy or put stents in or balloons or whatever, or drains, whatever. So a lot of it was the internal stuff that came later. Couple shrapnel removals, probably 8 to 10 pieces of shrapnel removed. That I was awake for. Everything else I was very heavily sedated or completely out for. So I think that surgery counts up to like 30 or 43 now. So I've had another, 8, 10 surgeries since I got out. So I've been out since 2011. The latest one, I had a disc replaced in my neck. But yeah, it's been a long road to recovery. During that time, we've had 2 kids. The first one was born a year or so after I got injured. So he's learning to walk. I'm learning to walk. And, some of the cognitive stuff that had gone to the wayside, and he's learning to write. And I'm sitting there writing and reading. And, I'm having a hard time reading a book from a kindergarten level. But, him growing up and going through school and everything like that has helped me. So it's, it's I guess it was a blessing in disguise that I got injured when I did and how I did, and having a kid so early after coming back that I was able to get back on the right track.
Oh man, that's amazing. I almost don't know what else to what would you, so you went in the Marines, you've experienced all this, and you were in till 2011. What are you doing now?
I'm a stay-at-home dad.
Great.
But I say that I work with a professional skydive team that's based out of Middletown, Ohio. Mm-hmm. We travel all over the world doing skydive performances. I myself do not jump. I'm not allowed to. I have a couple pieces of shrapnel near my femoral artery, and that's where the harness rides, and the doctor fears that too many heart openings could force that shrapnel out of the scar tissue and into the femoral. So I do a lot of PR for the team. I do the ground safety work. So as a ground safety specialist, what I do is check the landing area for any obstructions or anything that there might be there. It's like if we're jumping NASCAR and there's the race the day before the jump, I'll look at our area to see if there's any parts of cars out there that could potentially injure the skydiver, if there's any big holes in the ground, if there's drains that I need to mark. And then I do all the communications from the ground to the aircraft to let them know 5 minutes to exit, 3 minutes to exit, what the wind conditions are. And then once they get on the ground, I help them get their gear up and we get out of the way and we move on to the next one. But the team, they're all known as large flag specialists. So they jump huge American flags all over the world. I mean, we do.
I've seen that.
Yeah, we do an air show in Iwakuni, Japan, where we jump the American flag and the Japanese flag. And our jumpers have to be good enough to land at the very same time, because over there, it's all about that friendship. It's all about that camaraderie. And, they are hosts to us in that country. So it's not putting one country over the other.
Right.
So it's equal now. So it's a good time over there. It's fun. I love the culture, love the food. So I try to get back on that one every year we go over there. But yeah, we do NASCAR, IndyCar, college football, a lot of nonprofit stuff, especially here in the greater Cincinnati, Ohio, Dayton, Columbus area.
Wow, that's pretty exciting too.
Yeah, and then we have a nonprofit that, like I said earlier, that we cater to wounded veterans, Gold Star families, and those families that lost a loved one in the line of duty as first responders. So, and we do one big event every year, but we get together as a family once a month just to come together and talk about the upcoming year and what it's looking like, for how many newer people we have coming in or what we think we want to have coming in. So our application just opened, I think last week, and 5 or 6 of the guys that I've become friends with through different nonprofits and different organizations have already applied, and they're like, I'm coming to see you. We're coming in. So I'm excited for this year's event, because there's going to be a lot of guys that I have become friends with over the past 3 or 4 years that are going to be there.
Great. Is there anything you've always wanted to share about your service or veteran experience that you haven't?
I think veteran experience is, especially if you're on active duty right now, make sure that all your stuff's being documented, because the fight with the VA is a long one. I finally, just the end of December, got rated at 100% through the VA. So you're talking 43 surgeries. I can't tell you how many other hospital stays. I have documentation for all of it. The only thing that wasn't documented on the Marine Corps side / the Navy side, because that's who does all of our medical. So anything, get it documented. They've denied my neck and my back. They're like, it's not service related. I'm like, I was in the infantry for 9 years carrying a 30+ pound pack every time we went out, and I got blown up twice. How is it not? But the other injuries, the life-threatening injuries, were more important at the time than the doctor looking at my neck or my back to make sure everything was okay. So having to go back and get certified eyewitness statements from guys that were out there that night. After you leave, it's hard. I mean, even with Facebook and all this other social media that's out there, it's hard to stay in contact with a lot of guys. And some guys just don't want to relive that event, you know. So get everything documented, and then continue to fight for yourself. Yes. There's no better advocate than you. Other than my wife is the one that kept driving me. I gave up numerous times with the VA, and she continued, you have to do this, you have to do this. But yeah, you have to be your own advocate. I've had senators involved. I've had veteran service officers involved, and my wife pushing me and me pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing
Mm-hmm.
and not giving up is what got me to where I am today with the VA. So yeah, be an advocate for yourself, get everything documented, no matter how big or small it is.
Absolutely. What would you like people to remember from your story?
No matter what you're going through in life, no matter how many times you've been knocked down, you can get up and move on. You know, your normal, what used to be your normal may never be there again, but you got to find your new normal. And for veterans out there they're dealing with post-traumatic stress, I encourage all of you to look at post-traumatic growth. It's 5 different areas that the University of North Carolina, Charlotte, along with a couple other gentlemen, coined the term post-traumatic growth, and it's ways to grow past your traumatic event. And it really works. Like for me, it's fishing and helping out those who have been in similar situations that I have.
Wow. Thank you so much, Sam, for coming and talking to us. We really appreciate it.
No, thank you guys.